Welcome back to the briefing room. Still joined in studio here with Deputy Chief Tom Lindberg and Dispatch Manager Joe Burchett, and we're talking about the Novi Police Communications Center, which we house in our facility and have for decades now. Joe, why don't you talk a little bit about the whole public safety answering point and what that really means about the Novi Police Department Communications Center being designated as a PSAP, if you will?
Well, a couple things that I could point out. We mentioned earlier the difference in the technology and how it's involved. When 911 first came about, we dealt with landline or regular phones. You know, from a home, there's a physical wire that goes from the home to a switching station that handles the 911 data. With the change in technology where we're adding cellular phones and the voice over internet protocol systems that are out there, it's created a lot of challenges for us. It doesn't always give us location information, for instance, or owner information, or a lot of times the information may in fact be wrong. Each one of those calls goes to what is called a PSAP, or a public safety answering point. In Oakland County, for instance, there are 28 of those. Depending on where you're at, dictates where that phone call is going to be answered. With cell calls, for instance, just because you're physically inside Novi does not necessarily mean that Novi will be answering the phone. However, should another agency answer it, once they determine a location, it's transferred back. But that public safety answering point is the 911 answering point for any particular area. And again, Oakland County has 28. Some has a county-wide system that would service that. They also have what is called a secondary PSAP. Secondaries are that agencies where we might hand the 911 call off to for medical information, such as community ambulance, for instance. They have 911 equipment. The primary call won't go to them. It must be physically transferred by a primary, which Novi is.
And I'm glad you brought up some of the redundancies that we do have. I know you and the Deputy Chief have worked hard, and we have the ability at any given time, we can switch our 911 calls over to West Bloomfield or Oakland County, but we also have that ability for other communities, if their centers go down, to take their calls on too. Can you speak of that a little bit, Joe?
Well, the system is designed to have, it's called a default, that if something would happen, that Novi Center, for instance, became inoperative for whatever reason, the calls won't just not be answered. They will automatically, the system automatically transfers them to an agency that we've identified as being our default. In some cases, it's Oakland County. In some cases, it's West Bloomfield. We can change that anytime we need to, and it's done instantly. Novi, for instance, Walled Lake may, if their system goes down, they can have their phones come into our center that we can answer them and then get that information back so that the call can be answered appropriately.
And I think one of the things that we've done at virtually no cost to our community is establish a relationship with the West Bloomfield Township Police Department. Deputy Chief, if you can speak of that a little bit about that redundancy that's in place, that if we have to evacuate our building or the West Bloomfield Police have to evacuate, what that capability affords our two communities.
Well, it is. The word redundancy is the perfect word, because we can move there without missing a beat and perform all the same services that we do when our communication center is operating fully. And we test that frequently. As you know, we've gone through a lot of building renovations, and we've had to take the power down of our building, and we've put things in place that if something happens, we're ready to go within 15 minutes. We'd have a full service dispatch center going in West Bloomfield. But fortunately, we also have things in our place like a UPS system, an uninterruptible power source, that maintains our dispatch center in the case of a power outage. So that gives us the time to get personnel to West Bloomfield. Additionally, we do have some other equipment at our other emergency operations center at Fire Station 4 that gives us a little bit of ability to do some dispatching in short-term or more minor type scenarios that might go out.
And I know we were able to test this, obviously, periodically through our drills and our emergency preparedness drills, but we actually hosted the West Bloomfield Police Department a little over a year or 2 years ago when they were doing some construction to their facility, where their men and women were able to come over to Novi. Everything was the same, the computers were same, the furniture and the whole setup with the ergonomic construction of the facility, and that actually, we had and if I'm not mistaken, one of the first times that they were there, we actually had a barricaded gunman that we were handling for the South Lyon Police Department, and that was within the first hour. And I know the West Bloomfield dispatchers were actually involved with that, correct?
That is correct. They actually worked out of our center for 4 days. And it wasn't the first day that we did get a barricaded gunman call in South Lyon that the West Bloomfield dispatcher happened to pick up the line, and he actually negotiated with the guy approximately 45 minutes before we could get hostage negotiators on scene to take over that phone call, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was as if he worked in our center his whole time, but I think that's attributed to the equipment being the same. He was very comfortable in coming to there. His experience as a dispatcher obviously is the biggest attribute that he had, but the equipment being the same made it easy.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to the type of training, and that would kind of dovetails into the next question.